Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Takara Tomy release. As you can see, we've got the Archaeopteryx, which is awesome because there is a severe lack of Archaeopteryx figures out there if you ask me. I don't know why. You would think this one being a pretty popular species would have a lot of figures, but it doesn't have nearly as many as you might expect. But you can see when it comes to the box art, it's pretty much the standard from Takara Tomy. Nothing super special or amazing as far as the box art goes. Just as per usual, some random images of the figure and stuff as you move along and move around. So let's pop the box open and check it out. As far as what's inside, you do have cards. Again, one is in English, so that gives us a chance to read a little bit about this and, learn about the Archaeopteryx if you are not familiar. Also shows a few different areas of pretty cool art and stuff, so that's really fun. And then we've got our Archaeopteryx itself. Now, I brought it right out of the box. It kind of comes out of the box taped into this, and I don't know if that means that it has some sort of an issue when it comes to standing, but I thought it was interesting that it came like this, so I just pulled it out like this and figured I'd bring it in just to kind of show you guys, what it looks like and everything. But I'm pretty intrigued to actually take this off and check out whether or not it stands, so I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly. So we now have our Archaeopteryx loose, and let's see. Oh, it does still stand, actually, so I don't know why they had it in there like that. I will say the pose of this one is actually pretty cool. It definitely is a bit different from a lot of the other Takara Tomy figures. I also notice a few different things that I like about this one, like the fact that it seems like it has some pretty decent articulation throughout, which is a plus. Again, I think Takara Tomy is finally learning that they can articulate many different areas of the figure, and it's not that big of a deal for them. It definitely improves their figures overall. So if we bring it in and we take a closer look, actually I'm going to just bring the camera up just a hair. It's a little easier for me to take a closer look at it then. But you can see here, starting in the head sculpt, it looks alright when it comes to the fine detail. Nothing too flashy here. We do have a lighter blue in the face, and we move back to a darker blue as we lead into the body. The detail of the face is definitely a little muted. It's not super obvious, but it's there a little bit. You can definitely see the feathers start to pick up as you move into the neck, but up here in the head, it almost looks like it's bald when it comes to the feathers. There is some paintwork added to the inside of the mouth, but the detail is kind of jumbled in there, so you can't really see much going on. Just kind of like a dark red. I don't think that looks all that great, but it kind of looks like maybe it's eating something. I don't know. The mouth is slightly open, though, just enough to kind of show that, but if they weren't going to actually sculpt out teeth or anything, I feel like they probably should have just had the mouth closed. You can see the eye right there painted with an orange, given a black pupil. Also has a little bit of a gloss coat to it, which is nice. As we move down and we see that more vibrant blue pickup, it actually transitions to a different shade of a darker blue as we move into the body. Kind of looks like oh, look at that, we do have articulation. So swivel articulation right there in the neck. Obviously it's not super impressive like forward and back or left and right. I mean, it does have left and right, but it's not as impressive as Mattel articulation, but the fact that they included that is definitely a nice touch. As you move down further into the body, you can see we transition to a greenish tone. The underbelly does have some detail, but it is definitely very muted overall. My camera, it's so muted my camera doesn't even want to look at it. But you can see not a whole lot when it comes to the fine detail on the underbelly of our figure. But as you move up, you can see some decent feathers up here. You can really see some nice looking feather detail here on the wings as you move out. The sculpting of that area is quite nicely done. You have a nice light brown for the feathers on the underside of the wing, and you can see a yellow for the hands. Unfortunately, when it comes to the fingers and stuff and the nails, we didn't get paintwork. We did have it on the Tyrannomimus, but we don't get it on the Archaeopteryx, which is sad. As you move down, you can again see the feathers look okay, but definitely, muted overall when it comes to the fine detail. It looks a lot more crisp when you move out into the wings than it does moving through the primary body, which is definitely unfortunate. But as you move out, you do have a green again with a brown for the rear end of the wings, I guess you could say, and it looks pretty decent. Even the fingers are a little bit muted as far as the fine detail goes, but obviously you can see we actually have articulated wings, which is intriguing. Looks like we actually have an action feature with this. That's weird. I don't think I've ever seen a Takara Tomy figure like this with an action feature. As we move back out here into the tail, you can see again some more nice looking plumage out here on the end of the tail, kind of erratic feathers all over the place, following the same style of color with the green running down the center and then the brown out there on the edges of the feathers of the tail. But that looks really cool, and one really exciting aspect to this is, look, we don't have the ball joint. I wonder if that's going to be something that they're going to continue to do moving into the future, or if maybe that's just exclusive to these two figures here, because it kind of looks like that might be, as I'm moving the tail, I can see the wings moving, so that might be part of the action feature. But I would love to see them eliminate the ball joint entirely. As you move down into the legs of the Archaeopteryx, you can see some more feathers, again some more of the green as we transition to a yellow leading down into the feet. I'm really sad that the nails are not painted on it. I feel like that could have just been a minor touch that would have really improved the figure overall. But it is what it is, and of course when you look at it from both sides, it's going to look pretty much the same on both sides. And obviously we can see this action feature we have going on. So basically we lift the tail up and it flaps the wings. That's pretty cool. Again, not something I've really seen from Takara Tomy before. And I think the lack of a ball joint in the tail is definitely an improvement for the figure overall. And I just realized something that's very unfortunate about the figure. As I'm holding it here, I can see that the legs aren't moving. It looks like it should have articulation in the legs, but it actually does not. It just has the seams like it does. So maybe Takara Tomy overall isn't improving the way I thought they were. I was really excited about the fact that they were including so much articulation on their figures, but this one was just a psych, basically, teasing me that they were going to have articulation and then actually not having it. As far as a size goes, it's quite small. For a length, you're looking at about 3.5 inches, no, 3 3/4 inches. I'm sorry, I was covering it with the tape measure. So about 3 3/4 inches or 9.5 centimeters. And then for a height, you're looking at a little bit under 2 inches, or just shy of 5 centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Takara Tomy Archaeopteryx, and you can see again it's pretty small, just like it was last time around with the Tyrannomimus. Again, pretty close to the same size, honestly, as that figure. And to show you that, here is the Takara Tomy Tyrannomimus next to the Archaeopteryx, showing you that, again, pretty darn similar in size, which means I don't feel like we really need to do any more comparisons or anything past this point. We already did a few more with the Tyrannomimus, and if you watch that review, you're going to have a pretty good idea of the size of the Archaeopteryx here this time around. So this Takara Tomy Archaeopteryx is pretty cool. Again, it's not incredible, definitely not one of their best figures, but I will say they did give this one a little bit more paint application than you usually see on Takara Tomy releases, which is nice. Unfortunately, they took the lazy route when it comes to the nails, but other than that, again, some decent paint apps, as you've got like some lighter and darker shades of blues, variations of greens, yellows, browns. Normally you just get a few colors and maybe 1 to 3, I would say, but we actually have quite a few more on this figure, and overall I think it looks pretty nice. The fine detail is definitely hit or miss on this one though. When you move into the tail, the feather detail looks nice and crisp. When you move out through the arms, I think it also looks nice and crisp. When you move through the body, not as much, and even leading up into the head, it's fairly muted overall and doesn't look that great, but does look better in other areas. The inside of the mouth as well is kind of ugly. I don't really know what's going on in there. It's just kind of a little bit of a jumbled mess, and you can't really make out any teeth or any real detail at all, so I feel like they should have just closed the mouth on the figure. The articulation is okay on this one, as we actually have a swivel for the neck, but then as you move down, you do have articulation in the wings and tail, but they all kind of work together for one action feature, which is kind of nice. Again, it's pretty cool to have an action feature on a Takara Tomy figure, not something that, unless you're looking at the larger figures I had reviewed a ways back, you don't really see that on these smaller Takara Tomy figures, so it's kind of neat, but it takes away from the figure, I think, slightly when it comes to the posability of it, because, you can't just put the wings in a certain position or anything, and of course the wings are always extended, but that's not that big of a deal, I think. The lack of articulation in the legs, though, is kind of confusing, because it looks like it should have articulated legs, but sadly it does not, which is definitely a bummer for the figure. But overall, again, it's a pretty neat looking version of an Archaeopteryx, and one that, again, I think is worth picking up and adding to your collection, especially because it's fairly fairly small, so it shouldn't, be hard to fit into your collection. So if you are interested, keep checking eBay and Mercari and AliExpress and anywhere you know of that you might buy Takara Tomy figures. I've only seen this one on Mercari so far, one time through a seller that actually had it already, but I haven't heard of anybody else having it. I will give a look around though, see if I can find a listing to add in the description so that you can grab it if you want it. So do that, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.